3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
It's gonna be a new day. It's gonna be a new way. You must think that you're our king. Yehuda Dean, fourth tribe ENT. It's gonna be a new day. It's the beginning of a new way. You could never be our king. Yehuda Dean, rep Yah with me. It's the dawn of 400 years, 400 years since we shed our first tears, 400 years since my ancestors slain, 400 years since we all knew his name. 400 in this land, Babylon, the bases of many kings. Yah's name is gone. We are the mighty Yehuda Dean. Lions of Yah, praise Yah with me. The righteous, Yah, the holy, Yah, the creator, Yah, the only, Yah, the righteous, Yah, the holy, Yah, the creator, Yah, the only, Yah. He is our king, our savior, and our judge, Yehuda Dean. Yahweh is righteous. He is our king, our savior, and our judge, Yehuda Dean. Yahweh is righteous. It's gonna be a new day. It's gonna be a new way. You must think that you're our king, Yehuda Dean, fourth tribe ENT. It's gonna be a new day. It's the beginning of a new way. You could never be our king, Yehuda Dean, rep Yah with me. It's the dawn of 400 years, 400 years since you stole our names, 400 years since Willie Lynch made the slave, 400 years and we still remain, 400 years of living with Cain, 400 years and we still a slave, slaving on the job, slaving on the block, slaving in the jail and in our hearts. We are the mighty Yehuda Dean. Lions of Yah, praise Yah with me. The righteous, Yah, the holy, Yah, the creator, Yah, the only, Yah, the righteous, Yah, the holy, Yah, the creator, Yah, the only, Yah. He is our king, our savior, and our judge, Yehuda Dean. Yahweh is righteous. It's gonna be a new day. It's gonna be a new way. You must think that you're our king, Yehuda Dean, fourth tribe ENT. It's gonna be a new day. It's the beginning of a new way. You could never be our king, Yehuda Dean, rep Yah with me. Oh, you could never be my king. Oh, Yehuda Dean, for driving and oh, it's
We ride for,
Yeah,
we die for,
Yeah.
serve Yah only cause there is no one besides one.
let them know.
We ride for, we die for,
Uh-huh.
serve Yah only cause there is no one besides
Let
one.
them know.
there is none before God.
Yeah,
There is none beside God.
yeah,
There is only one God.
yeah.
There is only
Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise and honor to the Holy One of Israel, to the Creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is there and is, by saying hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. Yah is righteous, Yah is holy, and let Yahweh be magnified. Once again, the Creator has allowed us to come before you another day, bringing to you his great, holy, and exalted words, even the words of truth. I praise the mighty Yah this day for allowing us to see another day, even all the way to this sixth day, where we have come to our Passover season. And yes, today is the 14th day at evening, where we will acknowledge and observe the Passover according to the word of Yah. Of course, if we were in our holy land, this observance will be totally different. For example, if we were in our holy land and we were observing the Passover, we wouldn't be coming to you over there. We will be in our house, as it is mandated in the law. We will be roasting lamb and eating it all night long, also as is mandated according to the law. But because we are in the land of our enemies, and yes, this is an enemy, because if this was a friend, then why are we treated the way we are? This is not how you would treat your friends or your fellow citizens or your neighbor. And we're going to talk about the Passover tonight so that you can understand not only the law, but also you can understand the meaning as well as the purpose. It is befitting that the Passover, outside of the Sabbath day, the Passover is the first holy day of the year in the scriptures. Of course, you do have the Sabbath day, but also the yearly Shabbats. You have what you know of as the Passover, and it's number one. And we have some chairs. Get his chair, Obadiah's, and some other chairs that he has. Tell your Ima. And we do have people who's joining us at this evening to acknowledge and recognize the observance of the Passover. Again, as I stated before, it's very befitting that the Passover is the first holy day of the year, outside of the Sabbath day. Because something happened during the Passover that you want to know. And let me show you what this meaning is and what this purpose is of the Passover. And it's also befitting Because the Passover is occurring at a time where our people, even at this time, even in these last days, definitely need deliverance. So we're going to start our lesson today on this Passover memorial in the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter. In the book of Exodus 12, we're going to start reading the 25th verse, 12 and 25, so we can understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, the purpose in what we're doing, the meaning in what we're doing. And watch what it says.
And it shall come to pass,
And it shall come to pass.
when you become to the land which Yahweh will give you, according as he hath promised, that you shall keep this service.
Yeah, because the Passover was an annual celebration that was required to be done in the Holy Land, the Promised Land, the land of our nativity, and the land that the Creator gave our fathers. That's where it was supposed to be kept and observed. So what we're merely doing tonight is just acknowledging the Passover so that you will know how special this night is. Continue reading.
And it shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service?
And we're going to read the service of the Passover so you can understand if we were celebrating the Passover as it is written in the scriptures and we were in our Holy Land, there will be things that we will reenact that our children should be questioning us on. As a matter of fact, you should be questioning us today just by reading the story and the law of Yahweh. Then it says in the 27th verse, this is how we to answer our children.
That you shall say, it is the sacrifice of Yah's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Yisrael in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses, and the people bowed their head and worshiped.
And so the Passover is all about Yahweh delivering our houses. It was about Yahweh smoting the Egyptians. It was about Yahweh passing over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt. And he smote the Egyptians. Then as you can see how this Passover is very befitting today. Because we have many people today whose houses are being very plagued as we speak. They're being plagued with this virus that all you can do is pray that this plague does not come into your house. All you can do is pray that this plague does not hit any of your family members. It don't get you while you're going to work. It don't get you while you're going to buy food at the grocery store. It don't get you while you're going to the so-called essential businesses, which I don't know how Smoothie King What's so essential about Smoothie Kings? You can make smoothies at home. As a matter of fact, many of the business that they call essential, it don't seem to be essential at all to me. But nevertheless, they refer to them as essential businesses. But yet, while our people are going out to these so-called essential businesses, they are being plagued. And so now here, in some type of irony, that we need our houses as well as us to be delivered. And just to show you that truly, indeed, it is a plague, while we're reading this Exodus, the 12th chapter, I want you to read the 12th and 13th verse.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the deities of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am Yahweh. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I shall see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you for me a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever.
By an ordinance forever. And here it is, our people, the way that they were able to stay this plague is that they had to put blood upon their houses where they were. And this blood was a token, which means a sign. So when the blood was seen by the angel passed over you and didn't bring the plague that would destroy you. So yes, the Passover is very befitting as we speak. Because as I stated before, there's many in our own community. Egypt just means bondage. But Yahweh has sent the plague that undoubtedly is taking more of our people than anyone else. Because in this season, at this time, we find that instead of our people recognizing and acknowledging this great deliverance at the beginning of this year, very few is acknowledging it. Very few will observe it. Very few will even discuss it, talk about it, and teach it to their children. They don't know how many plagues it is. They don't know the order of the plagues. They don't know the season in which the plagues occurred. They don't know the meaning, the purpose of this great night. They don't know what they're supposed to take out of their houses and what they're to eat for 7 days and why they are to do it. So there's many things you got to know about this Passover. This day was such a great day that some people under the erroneous impression that Yahweh was going to replace this day. Yahweh would never replace this. This day was too great to replace. And just to show you this day would never, ever be replaced. Look what the Creator tells us in the book of Ezekiel 45. And we're going to get to the day so that we can read about it. But I just want to point out certain truths, certain things that you need to know how important this is. And he let us know in the book of Ezekiel, the 45th chapter. And when Ezekiel was prophesying this, in Ezekiel, he was foretelling about the future once our people return home. Just to show you, he was talking about the future when our people return home. If you read Ezekiel 45:1.
Moreover, when you shall divide by the lot the land for inheritance, you shall offer an oblation unto Yahweh, a holy portion of the land. The length shall be the length of 25,000 reeds, and the breadth shall be 10,000. This shall be holy in all the borders thereof round about.
Yeah, it's talking about when we return home and we begin to divide by lot the land for inheritance, and how we to offer an oblation unto Yahweh. So this is a future prophecy. But in this future prophecy, look what the Creator says will happen. And we're going to start reading Ezekiel 45, the 18th verse.
It reads, Thus saith Yahweh Elohim, in the first month,
In the first month.
in the first day of the month,
Uh-huh.
thou shalt take a young bullock without blemish, and cleanse the sanctuary. And the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering, and put it upon the posts of the house, and upon the four corners of the settle of the altar, and upon the posts of the gate of the inner court. And so you shall do the 7th day of the month for everyone that errs, and for him that is simple. So shall you reconcile the house.
So shall you reconcile the house. In other words, this is what we're to do in the first month, in the first day of the month. Now, this is when we return home, because you never read anything like this in the past, where our people, our priests, would do anything such of the sort. But this is what they will do in the future, and when the sanctuary is resurrected. But in the 21st verse it says,
In the first month,
in the first month,
in the 14th day of the month,
uh-huh,
you shall have the Passover,
you shall have the Passover.
a feast of 7 days.
Well, I thought Passover just happened one night. But you notice it's called a feast of 7 days. Go ahead.
Unleavened bread shall be eaten.
Unleavened bread shall be eaten. Go ahead.
And upon that day shall the prince prepare for himself and for all the people of the land a bullock for a sin offering.
Mm-hmm.
And 7 days of the feast he shall prepare a burnt offering to Yahweh. 7 bullocks and 7 rams without blemish, daily the 7 days. And a kid of the goats daily for a sin offering. And he shall prepare a meat offering of an ephah for a bullock, and an ephah for a ram, and a hin of oil for an ephah.
And just to show you how the future will be different than the past, and how we were executing the law, What's the 25th verse? We just read what we're to do on the first month, the 14th day of the month. You shall have the Passover, a feast of 7 days. Well, what's this 25th verse?
And in the 7th month,
In the 7th month,
in the 15th day of the month,
in the 15th day of the month,
shall he do the like in the feast of the 7 days.
in other words, the 7th month, the 15th day of the month, shall he do like in the feast of 7 days. And what is the feast of 7 days? The Passover. That's the feast of 7 days. But most people don't know that. Continue reading.
According to the sin offering.
Whatever the sin offering is, we do it according to the sin offering.
According to the burnt offering.
Whatever the burnt offering is, we do it according to the burnt offering of the feast of 7 days.
And according to the meat offering. And according to the oil.
Yes, the feast of 7 days. And what is the feast of 7 days? The feast of 7 days is the Passover. That's the Passover. And this is something else people need to know about the Passover. That's the Passover in the future. And as I stated before, Yahweh would never, ever abolish the Passover. So just imagine every year, and there's only 7 different years. That's it. And then after the 7th year, it repeats right back to the first year. And we're the number 7 Sabbaths of years, as we've been telling you. So there's only 7 different years, and you're not going to learn this and hear this and know this from any other congregation, because they're not teaching you about the Sabbath of years. They will rather tell you, well, Yahweh ain't showed us our years. Yahweh ain't showed us how to count. Yahweh ain't showed us how many years we've been in captivity. Well, maybe that is true. Yahweh haven't showed you, but he has shown us. And so every year, at the beginning of the year, the very first thing, the very first holy day, other than the Sabbath day, what you're going to learn is about deliverance. How Yahweh delivered our houses. So every year, that's what your mind and heart and spirit should be thinking about. Being delivered. And here, we happen to be in a circumstance, a situation where we need deliverance. And why would you go into another year and you just sleep and skip past the Passover? You skipping and sleeping past your deliverance. And why would you believe and think the Passover is just some meal that you put together and eat it? No, the Passover ain't no meal. The Passover is about our freedom. It's about our deliverance. And today, our people need to be delivered. First and foremost, especially our houses. Now, around the world, they have what you know of as a stay-at-home order. And why? Because if you go out, you are being subjugated, compromised by a plague that seem to be lurking outside your house. Of course, we know it ain't just outside your house, because many people getting sick inside the house. As a matter of fact, untold numbers are dying in the house, dying in the nursing homes, dying in various places, not even to be counted. All because they ain't been tested. And then we hear that the mass majority of the people that is being infected, the mass majority of the people that's dying are black people. And once again, they didn't know this last week, 2 weeks ago, last month, the month before that. Here it is. We're almost 3 months down, and we just found out a few days ago this week, that the majority of the people are black that's dying. They was able to tell us they going to send us checks in the mail, put money in our accounts, paying us for not working, sitting at home and still getting checks. Many people told us they going to stimulate us with some money. But what they neglected to tell us is that we the ones dying. Sound like some type of trick set up. And it sounds like, once again, nobody has our best interest with the exception of Yahweh. In the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, you say, well, why are you talking about Passover and also talking about COVID-19? Well, if we wasn't as simple, our people are simple because they should see the irony. How our people are being plagued and dying. And what do you think happened in the Passover? A plague killed the firstborn of Egypt, man and beast. And I don't know what you call a plague, but I know this, that when you have 800 people dying in one day in 24 hours, I don't know what you call that, but it's got to be called some type of plague. And that's just in New York. That's not in how many done died in Cincinnati, or died in Chicago, or died in Los Angeles, California, or died in Tennessee, or died in these other cities and states. That's just in New York. And you mean to tell me we're not alarmed by that? They said 70% of the deaths are black people. You don't even have to be good at math to understand 70% is a lot. And if 800 people are dying and 70% of that, you should be crying at this moment. You should be on your knees calling upon the Most High. But of course, they told you to stay at home. So we don't know what you're doing. In the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, and we're going to start reading at the 4th verse.
Leviticus 23:4. These are the feasts of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month at even is Yah's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto Yahweh.
Yeah, so on the 14th day of the first month at evening is Yahweh's Passover. And at all Yahweh's holy days, the Passover was the only holy day that Yahweh told us not to come out of the house. He told us to stay in the house all night long, eating lamb, eating goat, until the morning. And that was because there was a plague outside. And that's why I say we at a time that seemed to be ironic, because here it is, in the days of old, during the Passover, we were in, and everybody that was out were being plagued. Now, here it is today, they telling everybody to stay home around the world because there's a plague out there. There's a virus out there. And they would tell you that God don't have nothing to do with this. Well, you don't know what happened during the time that our people was in Egypt? In other words, Yahweh can tell you to stay in, and it's nothing. But then when the state and the federal government tell you to stay in, you do it. And this is what our people, they're going to have to learn not to trust our enemies. And I'm going to show you that. But this is a day that was not a holy calling out. They didn't call the people outside their homes so they can gather. They all gathered themselves in their own homes, keeping the law, keeping the commandments of the Most High. And so our people who took their time to celebrate the Passover with strangers and other people, they all came out of their houses to do so. And this is not the law at all. The only reason we out of the house at the sanctuary tonight is to teach the truth. Because we know that we cannot keep the Passover in our enemy's land. And what is the truth about the Passover? We seen that in the book of Ezekiel that Yahweh would never abolish the Passover. And we read that in the book of Ezekiel, the 45th chapter. We also learned about the Passover that, as we just read in the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, that this is a day that what is the Passover? What is the ordinance of the Passover? Well, if you look in the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, so we can see this ordinance. And I want you to forever keep your mind on the irony. What is the irony? The irony is the Passover had everything to do with a plague, killing people that didn't stay in the house. Now here, we have, at this time, people telling us to stay in the house so we won't be plagued. And the only example that we have of such a thing the only example where businesses have been shut down, planes grounded, ships docked, stadiums, football stadiums, baseball stadiums, basketball stadiums abandoned and turned into hospitals. The only example that we have of such a thing is the Passover. In the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, the 43rd verse, let us read the ordinance of the Passover.
And Yahweh said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof.
There shall no stranger eat thereof.
But every man's servant that is bought for money, when you have circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof.
Yeah, in other words, every man's servant that is bought for money. So if you're not bought with our money and we didn't circumcise you, then you were not someone that we allowed to keep the Passover. Watch what it says.
A foreigner.
A foreigner.
And a hired servant shall not eat thereof.
In other words, even if you work for us, you still couldn't eat the Passover unless you was bought with our money, born in our house, and you must be circumcised. But if you was just a foreigner, say, hey, can I keep the Passover? No. If you work for us and we paid you wages, could you keep the Passover? No. So it makes no sense at all for our people to go to these synagogues to keep the Passover with foreigners with them, because they surely couldn't keep it with us unless they was bought with our money, born in our house, and they be circumcised. That's the law. And then it says in the 46th verse,
in one house shall it be eaten. You shall not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall you break a bone thereof.
In other words, we wasn't going from house to house like this was some frat party, like this was some sorority party. No. We don't celebrate this like they celebrate Easter and all these false holidays. No. We ate it in one house, and we didn't carry the flesh abroad out of the house. In the way the Jewish people keep it, first of all, they don't even keep it in the house. They keep it in their sanctuaries. That's number one. Like they celebrate in Easter. Number two, many of them don't even just have gold, and they have some type of what they call a cedar meal, which is a total abomination. But even if they had goat and lamb, they still are not keeping it according to the rites, according to the ordinance of the Passover. And the reason why this is so very important, because Yahweh wanted us to memorialize the fact that he delivered our houses. And how can we memorialize that fact and we just out of the house doing whatever we want to do? And that goes totally against the very meaning of Passover. Because the Passover is all about Yahweh passing over our houses smote the Egyptians, sent the plague into our house, into their house, but our houses he seen the token of blood and did not allow the destroyer to come in. Then it says in the 47th verse,
all the congregation of Israel shall keep it.
in other words, all the congregation of Israel shall keep it.
And when a stranger shall sojourn with you, and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof.
No uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. And what is a sojourner? It says when a stranger shall sojourn with you. In other words, when he live with you. And why would a stranger live with you? The only way a stranger can live with you is that he's bought with your money, born in your house. He must be circumcised. So we didn't have just a bunch of strangers sojourning with us, or less they was born in our house and bought with our money. Now in the future, we will have certain strangers that will return home with us. And I'm going to show you what these strangers, according to the scriptures, Yahweh say these strangers will be. But keep reading.
One law
shall
be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourn amongst you.
Mm-hmm.
Thus did all the children of Israel, as Yahweh commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they.
And so did they. And so, but let me show you about these strangers that sojourn with us. And you will read about these strangers in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter. And if I was a stranger and I heard this particular lesson, imagine, here Yahweh is showing you great mercy. And why? Because the Passover is a time where there's only one type of meaning and purpose and thought that should be in your mind. And that is Yahweh is delivering our houses. And in delivering our houses, if you are a stranger, then you will come to the undeniable truth that Yahweh will deliver you with his people. Watch what it says in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, the very first verse.
For Yahweh will have mercy on Yaakov, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Yaakov. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whom captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors.
So here it is. It says, for Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob, would yet choose Israel, set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cling to the house of Yaakov. Yeah, this is what strangers will do. This is what foreigners will do. They will cling to the house of Yaakov, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids. And if you knew the heart of a servant, then you would know as a stranger, this is a proud position a most respectable position that you can have in the house of Israel. Do you know what Yahweh called his people? He called his people his servants. And anybody that don't want to be called a servant ain't fit to be a servant. And somebody who don't want to serve ain't fit to be delivered or saved. And so therefore, this is a most respectable position to have. And watch what it says in the 3rd verse.
And it shall come to pass
And it shall come to pass.
in the day that Yahweh shall give you rest.
He's going to give you rest. There's going to be a day where Yahweh will give you rest
From your sorrow,
from your sorrow
and from your fear,
and from your fear.
and from the hard bondage wherein you was made to serve.
Yeah, he's going to give you that rest from your sorrow, from your fear, and from the hard bondage wherein you were made to serve. And here it is. We're in 2020. Now, the old folk, they know what it means to have hard bondage. They know how they grew up and how we came up in the 60s and the 70s and in the 50s. They know how times have changed. And then once our people got into the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, even though it was hard for our people, they still don't know the hard bondage in which others had to labor. Their ancestors, their parents. But by the time we are delivered from this land, they're going to know hard bondage. They're going to know sorrow, and they're going to know fear. And right now, this fear is lurking all around our houses today because we are losing untold numbers of our people, and they being plagued today. And I've seen some of the stories how children are losing their parents. Children are losing their grandparents. And people are losing generations in their house. And here we go with the irony again. Passover is about Yahweh delivering our houses. So the very thing we should be praying for, especially at this time, is Yahweh delivering our house. As he did during the time of old, during the time of Passover. So you can keep gathering yourself with your strange friends, with the strangers and the foreigners all you want. But don't tell us you're keeping the Passover, because this is totally against the word of Yahweh. And not only you got to know the ordinance of the Passover, watch what the Creator says about this Passover in the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. We talked about how the Passover is about Yahweh passing over our houses in Egypt. The word Egypt means bondage. Where he would smote the Egyptians and enter their houses with this plague. And all the firstborn of man and beast in Egypt died by plague. And all you got to do is think about it today. Think about it. What example have you ever heard about, seen, where there was just a bunch of talk about this thing, where people are being plagued in their houses, and you have 800 people dying in one day, in 24 hours? And that's just in New York. That's not even all the various cities and states. Well, the only example you have such like that is the Passover. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, starting at the very first verse,
it reads, observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto Yahweh your Elohim. For in the month of Abib, Yahweh your Elohim brought you forth out of Egypt by night.
Yeah, he brought us out of Egypt by night. But he said, observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto Yah your Elohim. For in the month of Abib, Yahweh your Elohim brought you forth out of Egypt by night. In other words, the only reason we observe the month of Abib, and Abib is not no moon, it's a month. This is a month. There's no such moon called the Abib. This is an entire whole month. And the only reason you observe it is because this is the month that Yahweh brought us out of Egypt. It's not no moon, it's a month. And watch what it says.
You shall therefore sacrifice the Passover unto Yahweh your Elohim of the flock and the herd.
Of the flock and the herd.
In the place which Yahweh shall choose to place his name there.
Yeah, we would love to get us a good goat, a beautiful young lamb, maybe a bullock, and sacrifice it to Yahweh today. But Yahweh told us in his law that we're to sacrifice the Passover unto Yahweh your Elohim of the flock and the herd in the place which Yahweh shall choose to place his name there. And this is not that place. Yahweh didn't choose to place his name in Cincinnati or Chicago or Florida or Georgia. His name was placed in Jerusalem. And this is the place where the sacrifice, and I mean all sacrifices, took place. Yahweh was so particular that you could even sacrifice in the land of Yehuda, nor in the land of Benjamin, nor in the land of Simon, nor in the land of Naphtali. You had to sacrifice in the place where he chose to place his name, and that was called Jerusalem, the city of peace. The third verse.
Thou shalt not eat no leavened bread with it.
It says we're not to eat no leavened bread with it.
7 days shall you eat unleavened bread therewith.
7 days we're to eat unleavened bread.
even the bread of affliction.
Even the bread of affliction. Then you have a lot of people, they will take this bread, and yes, the Hebrew word for unleavened is matzah. And they would take this matzah and they would fix it up and dress it up and jelly it up and peanut butter it up and honey it up and do all kind of things with the matzah. But no, Yahweh said he wanted you to eat the bread of what? Affliction. He wanted you to get afflicted. He wanted this dry thing to be in your mouth so you can remember, so you can memorialize what bondage was all about. And then, because once you begin to realize what bondage is all about, then you will respect what freedom is all about. You know how some people, when they don't work for nothing, they don't respect it. And here it is, our people didn't work to do nothing to become free, because Yahweh freed them. Yahweh delivered them. Yahweh saved them. As soon as they came out of Egypt, what did they do? Acted a fool because they never worked for it. And y'all know today, if you don't work for what you got, you ain't going to respect nothing that you have. Government give you some food stamps, you ain't going to respect it. You'll take them food stamps and buy whatever. You'll sell them. But let you work for that food and let you work for that money. I guarantee you, you'll count every dollar you got, and every dollar will mean something to you. Let you get some free housing and see how that house look. But let you have to pay for it. Then it's going to be a whole different ball game. In here, Yahweh wanted us to respect our freedom. So he said, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction. Go ahead.
Thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you. But at
go back to even the bread of affliction right after that. For you came forth out of the land of Egypt and what?
You came out of the land of Egypt in haste.
And we came out of the land of Egypt in haste. We came out in a hurry. In a hurry. But not so in the near or future. Here it is. Your mind should be on being delivered. Coming out of bondage once again. Every year you should be thinking about this at that time. And here it is, our people talking about, we don't know when we're going to be saved. We might got 5 more years. Where say that at? We might have 15 more. Where say that at? We don't know. Well, if you don't know, then shut up. Why are you talking about something you don't even know? Talking about we don't know this and we don't know that. When you don't know the answer, you don't raise your hand. That's what I was taught in school. The only people who knew the answers, people rose their hand. We got people raising their hand talking about they don't know this and they don't know that, and misleading the people and making them think that their deliverance is not at hand. And I'm here to tell you, our deliverance is at hand. Watch what it says.
That thou mayest remember the day when you came forth out of the land of Egypt all the days of your life.
How many days of your life he wants you to remember that? All the days of your life. He don't want you to ever forget this. And how did he want you to memorialize it so that you won't forget it? Eating unleavened bread for 7 days. Here it is. We got people, man, I'm not doing that. You mean to tell me you would allow some bread to come between you and your creator? Some bread? You got to eat bread, some leavened bread, so bad that you're ready to flush your life, your freedom, down the toilet. And all he said is just eat unleavened bread. And you saying, I'm not doing it. Because we only did that in the land. Well, you can roll the dice that way, but I'm going to roll the dice according to his words. Watch what it says.
And there shall be no leavened bread seen with you in all your coast 7 days.
And that's why we put out the leaven, box the leaven up, do whatever it is with that leaven so it won't even be seen. And of course, this ain't our coast, but you won't see it with us, not for 7 days. Go ahead.
Neither shall there anything of the flesh, which you sacrifice the first day at even, remain all night until the morning.
And of course, we're not sacrificing the Passover anyway, because that only can be done in Jerusalem. Go ahead.
You may not sacrifice the Passover within any of your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you.
And so why are our people, and when I came up as an Israelite, and I've been an Israelite over 30 years where I've been knowing myself, and when I first became and woke up to the fact that I was Israel, many congregations were sacrificing the Passover. Many of them was eating lamb and roasting lamb and goat, which was totally against the word of Yahweh. And I may add, many of them still doing it today. Still today. And they just say, well, it's just goat. It's just lamb. And you will have some of them that will say, well, would you eat goat and lamb on other days? And I say, yes. But you won't eat it during the Passover. No. Because I don't want Yahweh to even think that I'm going against his will. And watch what it says.
But at the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose to place his name in, there you shall sacrifice the Passover at even.
There you shall sacrifice the Passover at evening.
At the going down of the sun.
At the going down of the sun.
At the season that you came forth out of Egypt.
Uh-huh.
And you shall roast and eat it in the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. And you shall turn in the morning and go unto your tents.
Yes, because this was that time that we sacrificed the Passover. This was that time we memorialized the Passover, because this was the time of our freedom. This was that time. This when Yahweh delivered our houses. And today, we need our houses once again delivered. All over the world, we need our houses delivered. Because this plague is real. And this plague is contagious. And is affecting our people in such an alarming rate that really it looks like genocide. But let me tell you what the president of the United States is saying, even though our people dying like flies. He's saying he's ready to open up business again. He's saying let's open up the communities and the cities again. Let's get back making money. But yet our people dying. And I knew this thing was very suspicious when it first started. Because I'm trying to think, why are they so insistent on reopening everything when this plague is going around the world killing people? Millions have been killed by this one plague. So it was confusing to me. Then Yahweh made them Yahweh made them tell us the truth, that it was black folk. No wonder they ready to get back to normal things. No wonder they ready to get back to work. Because it ain't affecting them like it is us. So they saying, why do we got to stay at home? Why do we got to miss paychecks? Why do we got to stay in the room? Losing our 401ks and losing our American dream. It ain't us dying like that. It's other people. Quarantine them, because that's what's going to be said next. Keep them in. Separate them. Come up with some type of plan where they will not affect us so we can get back to business as usual. So it is a truth that we need Yahweh to pass over us again. But we already have lost a lot of blood. And who's crying about it? Who's sad about it? Who's screaming about it? Who's in an uproar about the unspeakable amount of deaths that's taking place in our community? They wasn't in an uproar when our people was shooting each other's in the brains out in Chicago, dying by the hundreds, and they shooting one another, black on black crime. Who was in an uproar about that? Nobody. In other words, the police can see everything. They can see what you're doing on the corner here and the corner there, but they can't stop us from shooting one another. Not in Chicago, not in Cincinnati, not in Detroit, not in none of the major cities. Our people was already dying like flies. And this was the young folk. But now the plague is going on. We hear about this week that we didn't hear last week. And a week before that. And a week before that. And last month. As if the doctors didn't know all the people that was coming into the emergency room was black. Like the paramedics didn't know everybody they rushed to the hospital was black. Like the 911 calls that they was getting, that they didn't know this was black. All the people that was sitting at the customer service desk where they take your insurance and they say, do you got any insurance? Because they come in and ask you, do you have insurance? They didn't know they was black. You mean all the funeral homes and all the people who put these people, now they ain't even burying them. They send refrigerators outside of the hospitals because there's so many deaths. They put them straight into refrigerators. That's somebody's mama. That's somebody's sister. That's somebody's brother. And then come to find out, again, Yahweh making them tell the truth, that in New York, most of the deaths not only is black, but they said today that it's black men. And I don't hear no crying, no sign, no uproar, no empathy, no sympathy. And pretty good for the summer. And one of the last things I want to share with you, of course, not only is it our Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread weekend, the beginning, the start of it, and tomorrow we will deal with the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and we will deal with our deliverance out of Egypt, because this is about Yahweh delivering our houses. But I'll be remiss not to mention the fact that not only is it the Passover, and just like any righteous, good, wholesome blessing that Yahweh has for his people, Satan will have just the opposite. Something degenerate, something false, something fake, something phony, and something abominable. An abominable thing that he has that have our people totally brainwashed is called Easter. The word Easter is not even in the book. It's not in the Old Testament, nor is it in the New Testament. You'll see this word mentioned one time in the New Testament, and they will put it in English to try to trick you. But when you look up the original Greek for that word, you know what it would say? Passover. No such thing called Easter. This is a total paganistic holiday that has nothing to do with Yahweh. And as a matter of fact, it don't even have nothing to do with Christ. And he's phony. And they will have our people out celebrating a fake holiday, hunting for Easter eggs. And what do an egg have to do with the Passover? That's how you know the Jewish community is part of this trick. Because their Seder meal that they have includes an egg. And what do that have to do with Passover? Nothing. And our people will sit there with this egg talking about they Israel. And you won't even read the word egg with Passover at all. Period. And why would they have this fake, phony day alongside with the Passover to trick you. To trick you. That's all it is a trick. But the trick is on them, because Yahweh shut down many of the churches the Catholic temples where they will flock and more people celebrate Easter. More people go to church on Easter than any day of the year. That is the number one day, because this is the day where they said Christ died for their sins on Good Friday and was resurrected on Easter Sunday. So today, many of them call themselves celebrating Good Friday. But a lot of them, they ain't eat no fish because all the fish stores is closed. And that's what they typically would do on a day. And what do a fish got to do with the Passover? Nothing. Total paganistic. And of course, as many of you all know, the world don't know this, but the New Testament is totally fake and fictitious, and was a book that was brought about for your demise. And as I stated before, everything Yahweh has good for you, Satan got something bad for you. So Yahweh got the Holy Scriptures. The Scriptures are truth. And Satan had to have his counterfeit, the New Testament, a book of total contradiction. Not only it contradicts the word of Yah, but it contradicts itself. Yahweh has the Passover and the Sabbath day, which is the 7th day of the week. But Satan was not going to be outdone. He have Easter and Easter Sunday. And according to the New Testament, there's no such thing as Easter, and there's not one person in the New Testament that ever went to church on a Sunday. All through the New Testament, they all went to worship on the Sabbath day. And again, Yahweh have the laws, the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments. A holy people unto himself, called by his name. And Satan, once again, have his counterfeit. And they're called Christians. And they're called Muslims. And they're called by other names, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. And I know many of our people don't like me talking this way, but I told them I'm going to tell them the truth, because this is nothing but the truth. And you won't even find these religions in the Old Testament, nor will you find them in the New Testament. They're totally fake, phony, and fictitious. And you don't have to keep no law, no commandment, no statute, no judgment. All you have to do is believe to be a part of these religions. And a belief never saved anybody. And you don't have to believe me. As a matter of fact, I don't even want you to believe me. Because Yahweh, at this time, this season, this year, will show all the doubters, all the naysayers, all those out there running their mouth talking about Yahweh ain't showed us this, and we don't know the year, and we don't know this, but you still running your mouth talking, even though you proclaiming you don't even know. So why are you even talking? But nevertheless, Yahweh will show you that he's real. He has a servant in the earth that's here to tell the people the truth, and our deliverance is at hand. You might not think so because every day you feel free. Every day you waking up, think you can do whatever you want to do. And the world seems like it was the same as yesterday. It will be the same tomorrow. And you will see in one moment that the world that you know, the heathen that has put the smoke and mirrors over your eyes, that world has come to an end. So celebrate your Easter, and we will serve our Creator and eat our unleavened bread for 7 days. And we will remove the leaven out of our houses for 7 days, as our Creator commanded us. And you can eat your bread that you was told that was the body of Christ, and drink your grape juice, which you was told was his blood, and practice the heathenistic ways
90 seconds.
of our enemies. But if you're ready to wake up, if you're ready to do what is right, what is lawful and right, because Yahweh is ready to accept you. He's ready to take you back. But you have to stop following your enemies. Give them back their religion.
60 seconds.
Give them back their teachings. And take on Yahweh. Because Yahweh is ready and waiting for you. So until tomorrow, Yahweh love you. And so do I. Shalom.
For 100 centuries. Yeah. Let's go.
10 seconds.
Take a look at my soul. Nothing left but these hoes. They tried to take me down, but Yah is in control. So now I ask you, you suddenly black too? The oppressor ain't fair when he attacked you. Started wars cause they tried to tax you. You should be asking who they was taxing. Not what prices on our backs, and the IRS wanted in on the back end. Lincoln was never down for emancipation, just good political relations to try to make a good case for the next election. Yet Jim Crow came right back in the field, certified with a government seal. Crowley tried to stand up with zeal. Sadly, he thought that Jesus was real. They gave us them fake news and education to keep us concealed.
Take a look at my soul. All I wanna do is go. this horrible slavery. For 100 centuries, nothing left for you to hold. All I want to be is with my yard and live free.
Come on. For 100 centuries of this horrid slavery. But Yah, he is the king, and he will save me. So now I ask you, will you drop to your knees and beg Yah, please? Don't you know that Yah is coming? It's like tomorrow. I can't even tell you the time on your Audemars. Just guard your heart, baby Paul, baby doll. Don't cry. Paparazzi never cared about them tears. No way. Just fear my Yah all day. Rest in him, just like the song say. I'm waiting for the day that he sit on the throne. Till then I'm stuck in my zone, staying focused on the day when he finally take us home. Till then I'm prophesying to the dry bones. Till that day that I'm gone and Yah reveal what he has shown. That Yahweh is Elohim, is him and none alone.
Take a look at my soul. All I wanna do is go. There's nothing left of me, of this horrid slavery. For 100 centuries, nothing left for you to hold. All I want to be is with my Yah and live free. All I want to be is with my Yah and live free. All I want to be is with my Yah and live free. All I want to be is with my Yah and live free. All I want to be is with my Yah and live free. Live with God. There's nothing left of me, of this horrid slavery.